So where I want to start with this, I read that you both enjoy architecture quite a bit, and that
For
it's
sure.
influential in kind of what you do.
Mm.
So I'm sure you've been to the Netherlands before, but what is your impression of architecture over here?
Impressive.
I haven't really. We've been here for a couple of days, but I haven't been out or anything like that. Yeah, I've just been resting. So I'm just getting to see some of it today, but yeah, great brickwork.
And when it comes to architecture, because I read it was mostly or predominantly brutalism, that kind of modernistic
Yeah.
style. So how does that influence, in a sense, what you do?
Well, I think it's like
It's a mood thing, like.
yeah, our environment always affects us. Like so, depending on what style of architecture or what it is that's around you, affects your mood and affects like how you interact with the environment that day. Brutalism is just an interesting one because of its short-lived lifespan. Like the use of cheap materials to create something beautiful, and also the idea of something becoming beautiful that sort of is innately like not trying to be.
And is this something, because I think you both, did you both grew up in Dublin?
No, I'm from Cork.
Cork. We grew up in Cork. Yeah, I grew up in like Dublin at half my time. But yeah.
Because I have been to Dublin, I haven't been to Cork. What is the environment like? What as you were growing up and kind of getting into music, what?
A lot of space.
Okay.
Because from the country, like, so. A lot of fields. Yeah, it's good. I like it.
Yeah, I grew up in the city, so not much space.
I mean, like, living in the city and the countryside is kind of an extreme example of the surroundings and moods.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something kind of addictive about the city and how, like, frenetic it is, but then also something nice about the calmness and stillness of the countryside as well. Yeah.
In terms of the music that you were exposed to, then was there a difference in the type of music that you would encounter in the city as opposed to, or is it now in the age of the internet no longer?
So, I mean, yeah, it does kind of feel like your fingertips can touch anything you want with the internet and Spotify and everything. It's nice, though.
Yeah, but I think growing up, you're just kind of exposed to what your parents listen to, really.
Right.
So.
And then you have to take the bull by the horns because you're sick of it. Like.
Like for me, like my dad listened to a lot of Bowie and Kraftwerk and Flaming Lips and Mom, some other bands like that. So I had a good time. Like
yeah, my parents weren't quite as cool as that.
Yeah.
What were you raised on?
It wasn't bad. Like it was like a lot of the Who and like classic stuff like that. Some Neil Young.
Eagles.
Not the Eagles. Yeah. Then some dodgy country and some stuff like that. So,
Springsteen.
Yeah.
One of the names you mentioned, Kraftwerk, it's already it's that industrial thing, and which fits in with the modernistic architecture again. So
Yeah.
it's kind of that aesthetic. When did that aesthetic kind of make it to your music? Because was it early on that you thought, well, we're gonna make music, or?
I'm not sure. I think we were sort of just fumbling around at the beginning, just trying to figure out what it is that we wanted to say and how we wanted to create. And it wasn't until we wrote More Is Less that we thought we'd come across something that had lasting power, and became an opening statement for us, I think. So that idea of an industrial nature, or I think like even where we rehearse is in an industrial park. So again, our environment affects our mood and then what we make.
What was different on More Is Less as opposed to what you did before?
I think it just kind of felt like we'd arrived at some sort of an original sound. At that point, I think it was all very derivative. Like
Yeah, it was like. It just felt like you just get a feeling of like authenticity from ourselves. It wasn't that we reinvented the wheel or anything like that. It was just that it felt like it was true to what we wanted to say for the first time.
Yeah.
And at this point, had you been playing shows already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did that kind of
Take?
search for your sound take? How long?
Not that long, but I mean, we were like every time we played a gig, it was with nearly a full new set. Like, so we were just constantly just throwing out the oldest stuff and in with the new. But probably maybe like 6, 7 months.
Okay, so in that sense, it was very much a conscious effort not to delve into or go into and debut record then before you kind of figured
Sure,
out
yeah, and no
was.
babies as well. Just making sure to be tough with ourselves and
Yeah.
cut stuff.
So in terms of that honesty, then how do you negotiate that in terms of the music? How does that kind of
It's all instincts.
okay?
Instinct, and also I think kind of have a 5-way system of all 5 of us have to be happy. So if one person isn't feeling the same, that's kind of a flag. I think that something isn't quite right.
Yeah.
But in a sense, how do you write songs? And is it just the 5 of you in the room and just?
Yeah, and just kind of roll with it. I mean, it's different every time, as it should be. But yeah, again, it's just an instinct sort of thing. Sometimes we jam them. Sometimes it's more like go home and write a part for that. But yeah.
Especially early on, what was the ambition in what you did?
I don't know. I think it was just to make something that we were happy with.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah, that was really all we were motivated by. I think was just to be proud and happy of something.
There's no grand ambition behind like what it is we want to achieve. It's just we want to achieve an unspoken feeling, like a.
Just, yeah, kind of keep making music that we're happy and satisfied with. And,
But I suppose this unspoken feeling, and there's several parts of it. I suppose the live performance, and I think, but then the creative aspect. So, was it a culmination of those two things, or was it initially more let's just play live and then see what we can do?
Definitely both. I think.
Yeah.
We were just as focused in the writing room as we were on the stage. I think it's just easier to maybe like shadow yourself in the sense of freedom of the stage, and to ignore, what really matters is the music. It's like I think the fact that you get to play live is just like the best bonus to what it is that you do, is to write music like.
So in that sense, when the whole process for starting this debut album began, what was kind of the mindset within the band? What was the aim? Is like you say, you didn't have a preconceived notion, but what was kind of the mindset going forward towards a full body of work?
Cohesive, definitely.
Yeah, we wanted to have a story, like not a direct sort of folk era story, but like you can definitely listen to it from start to finish, and it brings you to different worlds, and it holds your hand through a narrative.
I think we wanted to explore lots of different sides of the one thing. We didn't want to be kind of, because we started with More is Less. That was the first kind of point, where we were like, okay, this is what we want to do. But we didn't want it to be all sort of angry, or not angry, but like fast-paced sort of stuff. You want it to be more three-dimensional.
Well, one word that kind of popped up in doing research was the word romance, that you were looking for a certain sense of romance within these stories and these narratives. So can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, I think you can find the romance in sort of any situation, depending on how you look at it, and there are many like romantic things about life itself. There's also romantic ideas tied in with the idea of death, and
Nice way to go through life. Try and look at things romantically.
Yeah.
You can like ease the pain a little bit of some situations.
yeah, I think romance is just inherently important to how the murder capital attempt to view the world.
Definitely.
And should I equate this, because the only way I perceive romance is through the artistic kind of style, so the kind of the grand gesture type thing, and then but then we can talk about this as much as you like, but am I right in saying that one of the things that kind of was a point of emphasis early on was a suicide, or the idea of suicide as kind of a topic that you wanted to discuss.
It was experienced by us, so it was something that we couldn't ignore. We just had to confront ourselves about it and how to go about dealing with something like that, and it bled heavily into our record. Yeah.
And then, well, this might be a little bit strange question, but how do you find the romance in something that is quite difficult, like a suicide?
Well, you find the romance in the person that is lost to it, and in what they gave you in their lives, and the work they left behind, your daydreams of what could have been. There's romantic ideas in there. It just depends on the type of romance or what you deem to be romance, you know.
Sure.
The type of difficult situation as well.
And then trying to capture that in sonically, is that a lot of trial and error? And then, like you say, waiting for instinct to kind of show you the way?
I suppose, naturally enough.
Everything is kind of trial and error, but like
I think creating music is like a time thing of just like putting in the hours, and eventually then you'll just like pass the plateau, hit a point where the song just happen like in 2 days. Most of the songs on the album kind of just happened like that, where it was a period of drought and then boom.
Yeah, there's a crypticism to me, like of like why when people ask like how do the five of us write these songs, like I don't know. So there's something underlying it like that. I think we're very lucky to have met each other.
Yeah, for sure. This is good chemistry.
Well, because of what you mentioned earlier, that it's different with each song. But for instance, if you take Slowdance, which kind of goes into the second part as well.
Yeah.
I could imagine that's just you sitting in a room jamming and then kind of...
Yeah, well, with that one, I think we'd watched The Thing the night before the movie, and there's this like kind of bass line in the background that's just like bum 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 bum, and the next day I was just like, I want a bass line like that because it's just like instant mood, like, and then that was a song that just came out then, like in 2 days the full thing was just finished. Yeah,
it's got an orchestral feel to it, I think.
Right.
And I think like when you look at the placement of like all the instrumentation of the album, and to me, the more I listen to, the more orchestral it sounds, you know. There's this chef in, well, she's not a chef, she's a monk. There's this monk in South Korea called Jang Kwan, and she is like famous for the monastery food that she cooks. But this writer, I can't remember his name, Jeff something from the New York Times, went over to visit her, and she like led him down this like long path, and they came to this river, and everything was still, and the water was flowing, and it was sort of like the floor was moving in the wind or whatever, and she just like looked at him and just said orchestra. And I think if you start to look at life in that way, or start to understand that like communication and creating music and everything is sort of like an orchestra, you know, once you get everything in its right place, then you begin to understand what it is that you're saying or what's happening, you know.
Does this tie in then as well with that idea of more is less, where if you just take a time and then actually look at something, that you can find the orchestra, like you say, in a creek or in like without all the noise of the city, perhaps, or
in writing more is less. Sorry, I don't know.
Well, that idea of more is less.
The message behind it, or
right.
Well, I think it's good to.
You can work that message either way, can't you?
Yeah.
It's actually a capitalist anthem.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but in some
More.
you definitely go by everything like bar and make sure we're being economical. Just like the amount of stuff we're putting in there, like, do you know what I mean? Like.
Okay, so this is also necessity, or
yeah, does that need to be there or not? Like, you know, or maybe we'll save that for later. And we'll take this out and put that in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a good musician knows when not to play. So we always
Good musician
kept
is
that.
aware of the economy and
we-
down
we-
Dow Jones and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but that's an interesting point.
Keep a
because-
good eye on the footsie.
But I think a lot of, especially if you look at electronic music, they don't know when to stop tinkering, and they don't know when to.
But maybe it was right, you know. Who are we
Well,
to
that's
say?
true. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
In a sense, like I do think you can overproduce things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, electronic music is definitely inspiring to us in terms of how they take things in and take things out and put things in. You know, there's like a kind of a trade-off a lot of the time. Yeah, you don't want that many layers. Sometimes you do, but not at all times. Trade-off.
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 What part of kind of the band's life was this taken out of, or is it more personal?
Well, no, I think. Well, I think it's a sort of a universal emotion, really, isn't it? The idea of isolation or loneliness. So, it's something that I imagine most people have felt at some point in their lives, and for me, it was something I was maybe feeling a lot around the time of writing it and the time of in the lead up to beginning to write it. So it filtered down.
Well, man, if I'm thinking too deep, just let me know. But what type of isolation are we talking about then? Was it isolation in terms of kind of a social context or more personal?
Probably more personal, I think. Maybe I think if you become unsure of who you are, and maybe you struggle to remember your past as it was, then things can become skewed. And if you like, I don't know, if something bad happens to you in your life or whatever, and you start looking the wrong way, then the world can feel like a very, very dark place, I think. Yeah.
I believe I read somewhere that the title "When I Have Fears" was established quite early on. Which
Yeah.
is usually the opposite of what I hear. So how come?
It's a poem that's important to all of us. A great friend of mine showed me it, or introduced me to Keats a long time ago, and it sort of encapsulates all joy and fear within any sort of existential thought, I think, and it brings forth like. For me anyway, kind of like all happiness of life, and also as artists, you know, before my pen is gleam, my teeming brain is that fear of to be frank, just of dying before you've communicated and created everything that you possibly can. You know?
Or feel you need to do.
And the joke is that you will die because you'll never be done. So.
Well, that's the thing, because I was going to, the question that popped into my head is how close do you think you've gotten with this album?
It's just one step up, like the staircase.
Yeah.
Like
The record is as it should be, but I think we're probably like 0.3% of the way.
loading.
So a lot more work.
Yeah.
But it's good, like especially because we're such a young band. It was great to have like a pillar like that to draw from. You know, with the title decided on earlier and that poem to like look on.
Well,
It's just those 5 words, "When I Have Fears," really stuck in with us. Yeah.
We didn't actually get past reading that then.
What kind of thought then? Because as a band who has released only a limited amount of material so far, but then generated a certain buzz around the band, does that interfere in a way with what you do or what you
It
try
could.
to say?
I think the answer is it could, and we didn't allow it
You're
to.
allowed to, but I mean, like it's maybe rare on the first album, but you're gonna have to deal with that on the subsequent albums always. So maybe it's good that we've got a taste of it. So the second album isn't as scary.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you so
Pleasure
much,
talking to
man.
you.
Cheers.